Hello on YouTube, hello on Twitch, and welcome to another episode of my HOI4 Let's Play series. This is Northstar. I hope you're well, taking care of each other and being kind to yourselves. For those new to my channel, welcome. Return viewers, welcome back. And do check out my YouTube channel page where you can find previous videos in this and all my other series. I've got over 56 playlists, approaching 60, over 1,200 videos, stuff, some of it, and buffers out to 2027, like January, February 2027, no further than that. So, you know, up to 12 months out. No, actually, the Stars series might have some March videos, I think. I have to check. Which gives me time to. I haven't actually done new videos in that series for months and months. But I will be returning to it, and hopefully there'll be no interruption for you guys. Also, if I posted things closer together, the algorithm wouldn't have given many views per video, so this is how I make sure that people actually see the stuff, by recording, you know, in bursts, and then posting more slowly. Just want to take a quick look at this. I'm playing as Denmark, and I will be going back to Denmark. This is a alt world, fragmented world start, basically, with the Americas, United Native American States, which ended up, there's also the Confederation of Canadian First Nations, that they have, well, actually they have that leader, but somehow he is back. I know that usually refers to Hitler in this game, but Truman was a monster too. Truman, Churchill, Stalin, all the winning leaders of World War II, and all the losing ones, Hitler, Mussolini too, they were all monsters. FDR was a good guy, but FDR died before the war was over. Truman made the decision to nuke Japan, of course, but Truman also went about undermining the New Deal, which I guess this guy was not in power in 1944, so it wasn't the historical date FDR died. There must have been some event that triggered anyways, despite this being like an alt history. I'm not sure how Truman, also I'm not sure how they got 20% communist support. They were normally sit at 1%. This allowed them to desegregate the armed forces, although there's still less recruitable population than when they had a first, like a council kind of like this, because they had I think it was 2% recruitable population, 10% recruitable population factor, same as this Republican People's Council, which is to say they actually have less manpower unless they do full desegregation, which starts a civil war. It used to be moves closer and you have to do 2 of these events, but then the devs later changed it so even one of these events triggers a civil war, which, I mean, they can't do this. They won't actually flip communist via, well, they won't do Union Representation Act. Actually, it's democratic socialism that actually turns them communist, but this doesn't actually trigger a Civil Legion protest. It's desegregation, because of course they're racist monsters. These are, you know, like MAGA people today, but worse. And yeah, desegregating the South ahead of the Civil Rights era leads to a civil war. Doesn't flip U.S. communist though, so even if they somehow got the communist support for it, which I think, yeah, they'd only have to gain, they're at 20%, so they'd only have to gain 1% communist support more, and they could take that focus. It would lead to a civil war, but the Silver Legion doesn't actually get a portion of their army. It's just a certain number of divisions that generate out of thin air. So they get crushed quickly by the U.S. Army. It would be nothing but a distraction for the U.S. for a little while. As Denmark, I could time it, right? Try and use spies to get them their communist support at 1%. It's very hard to do even that, and the AI could end up doing anti-communist raids. They're programmed to do that sometimes, so if they have the political power to do the raids, it could actually backfire. But using it to trigger a civil war in the US, although it's on a long delay, it's like a year or a year and a half after the Civil Legion protests, hurts their stability as well. It's just, I don't want to hear this. Could be used to distract them, and if it's after the World War II thing that's going on right now, after it ends, if the Central Powers get defeated, because really this is a war between the North American Alliance and the Central Powers, with the so-called anti-fascist bloc, which is actually led by France, which is like 90% fascist, but still non-aligned, and the British Communist Alternative, which also includes Iran, and actually, looks like just Iran, and yeah, the British now occupy Saudi Arabia, because Iraq annexed them, so that's actually, Saudi Arabia is no more. No Bitter Lake Accords to ruin the world here. This is one of the things Truman did that was evil, was signed an alliance with Saudi Arabia, which is what set the Middle East up for all the fanaticism and terrorism, because Saudi Arabia practices a very, very, very extreme form of Islam. I'm trying to remember the name for it, but there's actually a documentary called Bitter Lake. It's some serious... I didn't like it because it's far too centrist. I'm substantially to the left of the documentary filmmaker. He just takes this, the whole problem with the U.S. policy after World War II was just the Bitter Lake Accords. He can't point any fingers at capitalism or right-wingers like Nixon. But if you're to the right of me, if you're more centrist than me, you might actually enjoy the documentary. I found it too right-wing for my taste. But it does make a point about fundamentalist Islam and fanaticism thanks to the brutal, tyrannical Saudi Arabian regime being a U.S. ally and growing greatly in influence and power, whereas otherwise they would have just been a relatively marginalized Muslim country. Never completely, because they do have Mecca, but they wouldn't have had that much power influence in Iran and Iraq and stuff. Wouldn't have had to contend with Saudi-funded extremist militias, and there would have been no 9/11, because a lot of the hijackers in 9/11 were actually Saudis. Had nothing to do with Iraq, which we invaded, uses excuse, and although Afghanistan was where they did their training, they went to training centers in Afghanistan, then they came to the U.S. and learned to fly, but they were Saudis who did 9/11 terrorist attacks, which people, not all of them, some were not, but the largest segment of hijackers were Saudi Arabian. Something that is not talked about. Although there's a film, Super W, not film, a rap song, a YouTube video, which I recommend watching, and it even talks. We've been waiting for a long time to scratch that itch in Mesopotamia, even though we know the hijackers were mostly Saudi Arabian. It's true. Invading Iraq because of 9/11 makes no sense. It's just Orwellian doublethink. Anyways, the reason I popped over here, Republic of Rio Grande, is because I noticed this. I sometimes look to see how the AI is managing things, which, by the way, the answer for the Soviet Union is badly in terms of their production. They have like negative 124 steel, and they're still building military factories when they could be building infrastructure in steel-producing states, which would increase their steel production. They could even be building a supply hub in one place where they can take a decision to add steel production. Doesn't have a supply hub, so that would add steel production. And they could be taking decisions to add steel production that cost political power in some factories. Instead, the AI is doing stupid don't blab, the enemy is treacherous, that's why my spy is in Volga, Germany, even though this is a weird alt history and it's not German at all. This is a weird alt history state the Nazis envisioned carving out of the Soviet Union if they won World War II. And it's a releasable tag, stupidly. Even though it's democratic here, it's not fascist. But yeah, Marx Engelstadt is the name of the state that Volga, Germany has, and should be called the Republic of Marx Engelstadt, but whatever. Anyways, my spies got caught there twice in rapid succession. I'm like, what's going on? It's because the Soviets took a anti-spy decision, one that reduces enemy intel and one that increases operative capture chance. And apparently the devs programmed it stupidly, and it just applies to what would normally be Soviet cores, even if those cores are not held by the Soviet Union because of this fragmented world start. They don't even have cores there, and then it's not controlled by the Soviet Union. It's not owned by the Soviet Union. There's no reason, I guess, from a roleplay perspective, they caught telegraphs, like they intercepted letters or something that were coming, because the country's surrounded by the Soviet Union on every side. I'll show you what I'm talking about. The country where my spies were caught is here. Well, I guess there's Kazakhstan. So if they sent letters, maybe the Soviet spies intercepted them and then told the government, and then the government of Volga German workers, they've already flipped communist. I didn't notice that. Well, I guess my spies getting captured paid off. Paid off in that they'll either join the Central Powers, more likely they join the British Communist Alternative and get occupied. Now, if I've been flipping so many nations communist this way, if the Americans win this war, the British Communist Alternative will have all these nations that will be able to carve out probably puppet states out of the Soviet Union, and they'll have the proximity bonuses because it'll be directly adjacent to their core territory. So like Stalingrad could end up a puppet of Marx Engelstadt, a Soviet puppet, and this could lead to a sufficiently powerful British Communist Alternative that I could join them, and under the protection of the British Navy, which has 3266 dockyards, so more than the Americans or comparable, under the shipbuilding auspices of the British to protect against American invasions, it might be possible to actually then take on the Americans if I ally with the AI British. In my multiplayer branch off of this, Joe was playing as the British, and he'll do a better job handling them than the AI does, so I'm sure in that game I'll win. But anyways, I wanted to see if the Republic of Rio Grande here, which is part of the North American Alliance, is actually having fuel problems because the Soviets conducted a raid on the oil fields here. 25% of planes are lost. Raid units receive experience towards the max level, and they gain air XP. So the Soviets are already at max air XP ages ago, so that's useless. They lost 20% of a strategic bomber wing, but they were using interwar bombers, so they're actually about the cheapest strategic bombers possible. It's not so bad. And their pilots gained XP. I checked, and this is our veteran air wing. So I'm not sure if they were veterans before, so this gave them some veteran. It's like they built a strategic bomber wing just for missions like this. They have exactly 100 strategic bombers, which is just enough for raids on oil fields. Would be useful, except it looks like the Republic of the Rio Grande, they don't use oil because they're a tiny nation with no motorization. And there's more than enough American oil in the faction, even under limited exports, that it's not like the North American Alliance is hurting for oil. So this was a waste of bombers. It's kind of impressive, though, that the Soviets pulled this off. They used the air base in Mexico City, which hasn't yet been captured by the North American Alliance, so that will be soon. And they're actually currently evacuating the bombers here because they seem to recognize that this air base is going to be captured soon. I give the AI credit. They can handle their strategic bombing raids well. Unfortunately, they can't handle their production well. They can't handle division templates well. There's so many things they do badly. But at least the Soviets have enough clue to that. Also, let's look at the multiplier game. It's worth noting, these national spirits the Soviets are stuck with, they actually have the trigger conditions for this. There's a decision where they could remove this, and during their civil war, Stalin's AI could have removed these after it's locked behind a focus that you can't take. So if you're ever playing as, maybe you tagged over the Soviets after their civil war began, you decide to take Stalin's side after the left opposition path or something, happens occasionally in multiplayer games, you can remove those debuffs, but you have to do it before the Civil War ends. I think it can also apply if you get the debuff before you trigger the Civil War. Most often that occurs, I think, is the right opposition USSR, and someone complained on the forums. So the devs let you remove the debuff, but only during the Civil War. For some reason, they couldn't have just made it permanently available. So, yeah, so this was a waste of Soviet bombers, and apparently they lost a bunch of aircraft. There's also American aircraft here, which may have tried to intercept the raid, but failed. The only good thing that came out of this is maybe the Soviet bombers got XP. I'll just show you guys. So, this is the air wing. They're seasoned, not veteran. I think they were veteran before. They may have fallen to seasoned, replacing losses. But yeah, they gained XP. And it gives 20% towards max XP level, which it takes twice as much XP to get from regular to seasons as it does to veterans. So that would be, let's see. Yeah, 60% of the total max. I think that'd be 40% of the level towards season. I'm not sure if the losses of... They may have actually lost pilot XP. I'm not sure if the wing became more experienced due to the raid. It may have been a complete waste of Soviet. Would have been good if they could have bombed the oil fields here in Texas, because Texas has massive oil production, and those oil fields are productive enough to make a difference. Instead, they bombed the oil fields in Coahuila, which is normally Mexico, but here, the Republic of Rio Grande starts. It's a releasable that normally doesn't exist in the beginning of the game, but it does here. Anyways, 130. It's 120 something. It recalculates. It's bud when the game loads up. I think this is 120 something. Negative 120 steel normally after. I tied over them. I did decide they had 2 idle factories. I'd queue this up in another plane. They canceled one. I guess if they lose, they might be programmed at such high negative steel to just not run a factory, but they could be running a second factory on this or something. You know what? I'll do this, and hopefully the AI doesn't cancel it. So the IL-10, not a terrible design. It's a balance between maximum ground attack and cost effectiveness. All max damage casts usually has very low agility when attacking. That's irrelevant because agility only affects gives defensive bonuses you have more than the attacker, which cast is pretty much never gonna have, except decent little cast design. But because of resource shortages, they have at least some aluminum. They're producing that ridiculously slowly. Also, they have only a general aircraft manufacturer, because Trotsky gets the normal Soviet one, so that kind of stinks. I don't even think they get the unique Soviet traits. Oh, here, these guys show up now. One of the times I tagged him before, they didn't have Yarolov or Tupolev. These appear sometimes, but not others. Or maybe it was in the multiplayer that they only had this. That might have been. So they might have gotten access to it after taking probably something that buffed the MIOs. Women, Aviation, Air Group. I'm not sure. At some point they got these MIOs, or maybe they sometimes get it and sometimes disappear. Or, you know what? It probably is the merged material plants. That would be... Where is it? Merged tank and material. Nope. I don't know. It's buggy. It's buggy when Stalin wins the Civil War. And he won it because a lot of Trotskyite divisions spawned in the middle of Kazakhstan and stuff, and they just were stranded and couldn't reach the front. If they had, Trotsky would have won the Civil War. So this is weird. The devs didn't properly plan around fragmented world starts. They didn't make things work correctly. A lot of things are buggy. Amusing, but I probably won't do it again, except to go back to the day zero. I'll play with this around, but when I get bored of this world, this start, whether I keep going or stop, I'll probably just do it normal. Even though I don't like having the Germans on the map, they cause huge issues, but a lot of focuses reference them. It forces you to plan your whole gameplay around the Germans and Americans. Miners can't do anything unless they're extremely aggressive about expanding their borders or they ally with one of these nations. I guess it's a World War II game. Probably most people want, but yeah, this bomber raid was completely wasteful. It should have given, like, I don't know, some more support buff or something. Instead, they just lost a bunch of expensive planes. This should be, where is it? It doesn't even have a 74 each. They lost 25 of them. That would be what? 370 times 5. That'd be like 1850 ICs. It's not terrible. It's a fraction of the cost of a mil, but that's still a lot to lose for nothing. That was completely pointless. Soviet AI, but it's impressive they could pull it off even so. Alright, enough of that. That's barbed wire. So yeah, I'm seeing here, this looks like the correct numbers, at least. This would be what it settles on after the initial bugs whenever I load up a save. Should be negative 13 steel, 3 aluminum, 3 tungsten, but it'll drop to a worse number for a day or two. Because it's bud whenever you load the save. It's stupid. It punishes you for having a life where you can't play the game for 52 hours straight or whatever. I mean, if you're just battle planning across the map, you're not going to complete a campaign, and it's annoying. in one sitting usually, unless you're like one of those YouTubers who can click like 1,000 times a second. I don't know how these people do it. Oh yeah, it's another division to training. At this point, they're just getting the most modern rifles because they run out of older equipment to use for nothing but training purposes. So the Civil War in Altai, I know I'm jumping around between different things. I could send volunteers. I'm acting like, oh, there's nothing I can do. I could send volunteers. Send one air wing. Oh, it counts planes in the reserves. That's good. I don't have 422 trained pilots. They have no air bases though. They're limited to 0 air wings by their air base capacity. It's actually limited by the number of provinces. But yeah, the fact that the air wings that exist are all on the capitalist side means I can't send air volunteers unless I want to help the capitalists win for some reason. Which, this is actually the Civil War version. It doesn't have any advisors except, I think, Democratic Reform or Communist or Revolutionary. So, I don't think they even have any generals. Or you write Soviet Republic. And the elections get cancelled after the Civil War breaks out, so it actually probably delays Altai flipping communist. In short, this is kind of a waste, except for the opportunity to send volunteers and maybe get combat experience. But I could send... You have 0 volunteers. Okay, I can only send 1 division. That's not going to win them the Civil War unless it's in a really good one. Which I could, and they'd appear here in their capital. How long ago did this war break out? 4 days ago. There's probably already a division marching on it. I'm not even sure that they can arrive before the war is over. Depends what the AI does with their 1 division. I could do it to accelerate the revolution. And besides, this is gonna probably, after the Civil War is over, it's gonna join the British Communist Alternative and get occupied. I probably actually want them to be weaker. For that. And the original tag, I think it's still there as releasable later. Amusingly. I don't know. The only reason to get involved really is to train my generals. I could send this guy with one of my cav divisions, maybe. He doesn't have the newest rifles. I kind of want to train him because he's only level 1, so he can roll through Academy traits later to give him XP. And if he gets Cavalry Leader, I can give him Combined Arms Expert and make him Combined Arms Specialist from our military high command, which I don't have great choices. I don't have an Infantry Leader. Artillery is only buffs line artillery battalions. So if you have really, really high proportion of that, it might be sort of worth it, but Artillery Experts are kind of meh. Combined Arms will help my pure motorized divisions, though, like this. This division, we get substantial buffs from a Combined Arms Expert, and eventually give us support companies and some towed artillery and stuff. Something like this, you know, for soft attack. Probably actually rocket. Let's give it the correct thing so you can see what it probably looks like. Motorized anti-air. How much does this increase the combat with? 3? No, 1. Good. If I wanted to, you know, instead of support anti-air, save the slot for a different sort of support company. Something like this. Let's also give some heart attack. I'll just draw it up so you guys can see what I'd probably... Maintenance companies so that you cover equipment when you win. Logistics, because that's actually what wins wars more often than not. People are like, why are my divisions performing so badly? They have great stats. It's because they're suffering like minus 40% multiplicative penalty. So it doesn't matter how good your other buffs are. They don't grace this. They just give a bigger number that you lose more of to their attack because they're at 0% supply. I mean, it's not always 0%, but you get the idea. Yeah, this does work on these. Okay. So something like, I don't even have the tech for, this would limit the division speed, I think. Yeah, I don't even have an equipment variant, so it's not. The max speed of these is only 9 kilometers an hour. So this should limit the division to 9 kilometers an hour, if I'm not mistaken. You need higher tech. But eventually I'll have something like this. It has some hard attack, and this will probably be the anti-tank version of the armored cars, so I get more hard attack. It's got soft attack, and it's got enough breakthrough to not suffer crits reliably. Let's see. Engineers probably for like river crossing attack bonuses. Once you gain, they can help with moving through harsh terrain, marshes and rivers. So you want them if you want to move fast, or just for zero width stats. If these are so Sinnoh companies be good if you're using them to reinforce rapidly your infantry, but with mass assault you don't need them because they have like 15% reinforce rate. They can also help with coordination if you have lots of small divisions. So let's do something like this, and maybe even this to bring down the width so I can have more of them on a front line. Rocket artillery for. So here you get something. Its stats are okay. It'd be better with better armored cars. You get a planning bonus, a general bonus, and you might have enough breakthrough to not suffer too many crits. Not as much as infantry. With, maybe you add a mechanized division instead of one of these, or a single tank battalion, and you're looking at a cheap, or an armored car even. Yeah, armored car is the ghetto tanks. They work off automotive manufacturers instead of tank ones. So if you have a really good tank at Mayo, because you've produced lots of motorized, lots of trucks. Yeah, so something like this would be pretty expensive, but fast. Lots of hit points relative to manpower. Requires nothing but armored car techs, and yeah, it's lower tech, and it would be buffed by. I'd want to buff the logistics and maintenance companies up more before it actually uses an engineers, but you get the idea. Or maybe support artillery instead. Something like this. Is it good? No, but it's available sooner than light tank divisions. I've invested in air instead of tanks to try and help the Central Powers win their air war. The point is this general would be the guy who I want him as an advisor. And he needs, so instead of the Spanish Civil War, it's the Altaian Civil War that I would use to train him up. But if I send him, he'll probably die horribly. Why is this guy not planning? They lose all the 3rd Odense and the 1st Cavalry Regiment. I'm gonna rename these the 2nd Cavalry Regiment. So the 1st and 2nd, I could send 1, but not 2, because they only have 1 state, and I guess it's a minor civil war. But if I sent divisions to one of the main wars in the world, the Anglo-Turkish War is the main one. That involves the British Communist Alternative, the North American Alliance. My divisions get chewed up. They wouldn't be able to come back for a very long time unless I started a war. It would either be there or sending them to Ethiopia, because there's actually a war going on in Ethiopia. It's been going on forever. Gambella is fighting, well, pretty much everyone at this point. Somalia and the Bengashi Gumas nation. So they're fighting their northern and eastern neighbors, and they're gonna lose. But because they're fighting with like irregulars and mountains, this is a really slow war. I wouldn't want to send them the divisions because they could be crushed, but I could send the Somalis or the northern neighbors, I could send them volunteers. Alright, what about, I can only send 2 divisions. So let's say I sent the Cav reserves. Would they accept? Probably, but it doesn't say. That would be a way to train up my generals. Well, should have been doing that earlier instead of sitting doing nothing, sending volunteers to various wars. Of course, that's in a hot part of the world. My divisions are cold acclimatized. This cold is probably slowing down the enemy march rate, and that's the only reason they haven't already lost. Yeah, I could send air volunteers, except they have no air bases. To the Smallies. Limited to 2 air wings by their airbase capacity. What about these guys? They don't have any. So yeah, I could send 2 air wings to the Somali Salt. Or that might be better if I wanted to train some pilots, get an ace or something. Air volunteers you can easily pull back. Ground volunteers get stuck there until the war's over or you go to war. And it takes 2 weeks from the arrive, which this war won't last 2 weeks. Probably. This one will.